All right, Iris, we're going to try to make one of these little wing thingies. So going to just show you how I would do it, and then if you want to copy that or just try your own method, that's fine. But ideally, this would be kind of flowy and curvy, so straight lines aren't always going to work. But anytime you can use a straight line, they're easier to use than curves. So I'm just going to be drawing some curves, then filling in the straight lines afterwards. One of the things I want to do first of all is move this away so I can see the drawing. So I want to move everything except for the drawing itself away. So I'm going to I'm going to draw a selection box from the upper right hand corner. I'm clicking and holding, drag a box that will select everything inside the box. So everything is now selected. Now I want to deselect the the image itself. So from this selection, I want to remove the drawing. So I'm just going to click on that. Oh, you have to hold the Shift key. So there, it's added to the selection. I'm holding Shift key down. Click to remove it. So now just this stuff is selected. And I'm going to move it off a specific distance so that I can move it back onto the drawing if I need to. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here and use the Move tool. Click anywhere and just make sure that you're on one of the axes. This is on the red. And I'm going to say, let's move it 500 over. Enter. All right, so now that's not going to get in the way of us drawing one of these wings. So I'm going to go and zoom in here. So I'm going to purposely start this a little bit farther in so that it will actually attach to what we have already created. I don't want to shortchange it. If it's over here, then it won't attach. So I'm going to start by drawing a straight line from about here, following along this line here until it becomes a curve. So about until right there. Now I have my first curve. So I'm going to use this arc tool, 2-point arc. Start here and then determine where that arc is going to end. So I think about right here. And then drag away and see if I can. That's a pretty good curve right there. There you go. Now I've got this other curve that goes the opposite direction. So I'm going to start here and then go over here. And it's not going to be exact, but it's going to be close enough. So about right there. So again, it's not perfect, but I'm looking for this nice flowy pattern. All right, so now I want to finish this part here. There's definitely a curve there. So I'm going to do probably 2 curves to make this. So I'm going to click here and click here. Oh, that's not a 2-point curve, is it? There we go. Oh, why does it keep moving in? There we go. Let's just say about like that. And then I've got another curve here from here to here. just ever so slightly curved. Okay, so the number of segments is too large. So we've already increased the size of this, and I don't want to do that again. So I'm just going to use a straight line. From here to about here. All right, now I could model the bottom, but I also can cheat a little bit by offsetting this line. So I'm just going to copy this line here and offset it. So that's found. That's not it. Where's the offset? It's right here. So I want to choose this, actually all of these lines. So let's go ahead and select those first. Select all these curves that I have here. To hold the shift key down. So I have these 3 lines selected, and I'm going to offset those. And let's say I'm looking over here to see how far away I want to offset. About 11 millimeters. All right, now this, it gets a little bit wider as I'm looking at this. It's a little bit wider over here than it is over here. So it narrows down over here, gets wider over there. So I'm going to actually rotate this line now. So I need to use my select tool. Select these 3 lines and use the rotate. I want to grab it here and then grab over here somewhere. And then, oh, it's moving all those lines, but we can clean that up later. Got that there. So I'm actually going to delete some of this stuff. I'm going to draw a new line from here to about right there. Then I can delete this guy. And I know it's not exact, but it's close enough. So we're going to call that good. So this will be one shape. So I'm going to close that just by drawing a line across. And this is going to be thicker, at least it appears in the drawing. It's going to be thicker than the other part of the wing. So this is going to be one separate dealie. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a component. So I'm going to draw a box that intersects all those lines and then remove the image from the selection by holding shift down, clicking on it. So now only this is selected. Actually, an easier way to do that is to just double click the face of a surface. That selects the surface and all the edges. So now I want to make this a component. Let's call this the wing edge. Okay, so now I've got this component. And I'm going to actually move this away so I can let's go ahead and use the move tool. And I'm going to move it over because now I have another finished piece. It's almost finished. And I want to just make sure I'm on the red axis. And what do we do? 500? 500. All right, so now that's attached there. Now I'm going to model this part of the wing. And this has stripes in it. So it looks like the thicker portions of the wing are going to also be taller, or they're going to be thicker both ways. They're going to be wide and thick. So the thin stripes are actually going to be the thinnest part. So what I'm going to do is create the outline. That's going to be the thin part, so the little tiny stripes. And then I'm going to model what are going to be the thick ones. So let's do this first part first. Going to do some curves, so we need the arc tool. And I'm going to click right there. And let's say about right here. And do this arc. Then, so I have a smaller arc here. Here to about right. Let's go a little bit farther out. No. That's where it gets tricky. Then I have pretty much a very straight line to about right here. Then I'm going to click here and here. Make another curve. Then I got another straight line to about right here. Click there, and then we'll finish this off right there. So now all I got to do is connect the dots with some straight lines. Looks pretty good. So this needs to be a closed shape, and it really doesn't matter that I have this exact line. It just needs to be covered up by the previous shape. So I can kind of go inside this line. So I'm just going to kind of freehand something here. I'm going to close this shape, so I'm going to click there and there. And as long as I'm inside here, it doesn't really matter the shape. There we go. So now I have another component. I'm going to go ahead and select this, make it a component. I'm going to call this the feather. I don't know. It just needs to be named. Okay, now I can move this over as well. 500. So now it's matched up over here. And now I need to make these tiny thingies. And I know they kind of go to a point, but I'm just going to make straight stripes, like rectangles. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make one large one. Make sure, actually, let's just do it over here. It's going to make sense as soon as let's make a straight line. Okay, so good. This is on the green axis. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool. I'm going to click here. As long as I'm inside this, what we first created. Click here to start. And then this is a really thin but very long rectangle. So I want to make sure it's as long as this one's going to be. So I'm going to purposely make it longer. Say about right there. Okay, so now what I need to do is figure out the distance. Actually, I don't need to figure out the distance. I'm going to eyeball it. So I need to know how many stripes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 of these thingies. So what I want to do is select it. And then I want to copy. So I'm going to use the move tool, but make sure I'm in the copy mode by clicking Control. Copy it from here over to the last one. So right there. And then divide by 27. I think there's too many. So I think I wanted 26. Let's undo that. So let's do, I have to select it again. Move in copy mode. At this point. Over to this point. Divided by 26. There we go. And these are going to work because they all extend beyond the boundary. We want to make sure that they extend beyond the boundary on the top and beyond the boundary on the bottom. All right, so I think what we want to do now is place this. We're going to make this a component as well. So let's go ahead and click the select tool, select all these, then deselect the image, holding Shift key, and then I want to right click and make component. I'll call this the ribs. Okay, now this is all going to come together as we make the solid. So at this point, we need to reference exact measurements. So I need to know what this currently is, and then I'm going to resize it. So I'm going to use the measuring tape to take a measurement from this point out to the edge. So I'm currently at 50, let's say 60 millimeters, just to make it easy math. So that means it's 120 millimeters across. And my bearing size is 23 millimeters across. So I know that I want at least a little bit of meat on the outside of the bearing. So I want this opening from here to here to be probably 20, say 28, say 30, just to be an even number. So I want it to be 30, and it's currently 60. So I need the size of this to be cut in half. So you're going to have to do some math. Your measurements may be different because we did increase the scale, but basically what you want to take is this measurement, the current measurement, from end to end, whatever that is. It could be thousands, I don't know. So from this point across to the other side. This one is 117. And I want that to be, and you also want it to be, we just said 30? Yeah, 30. So we want it to be 30. So that to there is currently 117. Let's round it up to 118. And then I'm going to do some math. So you want to divide the smaller number by the bigger number. It's clear. The smaller number is 30. Divided by, mine is 115. So 0.26 is the scale that I need to scale it down. So I'm going to go back to my Sketchup. And we're going to scale everything down, whatever that is. So you're dividing the smaller number, which is 30, by the bigger number, whatever your measurement was from end to end on this circle. And then whatever that fraction is, that's the scale you want it to be. So I'm going to select everything in my drawing so far. Use the scale tool. I'm going to grab it from the corner down. And then mine is 0.26. Enter. So now it truly is to scale. So now I know that if I create solids out of these things now, the true thickness will be what it's supposed to be. So I recommend anything that's going to be created in this plastic that we're using should probably be about 5 millimeters thick. So we're going to make the thickest parts 5 millimeters and see what that looks like. And let's say if we're doing 5 millimeters, then we're going to be doing half of that because we're only modeling half. So this all makes sense in a little bit. So I want to model now some solids. I'm going to start with this shape here. Oops, that's scale. So I get into the component. So this is the thickest part. And if I want it to be 5 millimeters, that means I'm going to be extruding it or push-pulling it 2.5. Push-pull this up 2.5, enter. Now that might look a little too thick to you, but we're going to keep it that way. So to get 5 millimeters, that means I have to push-pull this out also 2.5. All right. Now the thin part is going to be thinner, obviously. And so we can't do 5. So let's do 1.5. So that would be a total of 3 millimeters. So 1.5. 1.5 this way, and then also 1.5 the opposite way. All right, so that's supposed to be the thickest part, right? And now we have these things here. I'm going to do this a little bit different, so just bear with me here. We're going to be copying these over. So use the move tool, but we're going to copy. Control for copy. And we move this over. Oh, we don't know exactly because we were using a specific measurement. So it was 500, but that's not going to work. So I'm just going to eyeball this. Let's see, right there is good. And I don't want to completely make stripes all the way through. So these stripes are actually going to be starting, somewhere above the center point. So here's the center point. I want to move these up. So let's say let's move it, and we want to go on the blue axis, so straight up, and find the blue. So you'll use the arrow keys. There we go. The up arrow is the Z, so that's the blue. And I want to start these probably let's say 1 millimeter off. That only gives us a 0.5 millimeter of recess. So let's say 0.75 from center, 0.75. There we go. Then I want to copy these same things, it'll be 1.5 down. So the same distance from center. So I move them up 0.75, and I wanted to move them down 0.75 as well. So total, since I moved it up 0.75, and I want to move it back to the original, and then an additional 0.75. So that's a total of 1.5. So I want to copy, control, copy these. I'm going to go down, so that's again, the up arrow is the Z, and then 1.5, enter. Now, here's something I'm not sure about. I think if I push-pull these, they're going to go in the same direction. Let's see what happens. Let's just push-pull one of these and see what happens. Yes, I think because it's selected, I can see that. That's not going to work. I want them to go in opposite directions. So before I do this, I need to make a separate component. So I want these to act independent of each other. Let's make unique is what we want. So now it's its own thing. So now I can edit this one. And we're going to select all these faces here. And there's a lot of these. I don't need to double click, I'm just clicking the surfaces. I have all of them selected now. I want to push pull these. Oh no. I just deselected all of them. I'm going to do it one at a time. Okay. So it doesn't matter how tall I have these. I need them to go through this. So they have to be at least be that tall. So I'm just going to make them taller than that. I'm going to make them, I'll reference this face. Make all of these that tall. Okay. All right. Almost there. Doesn't matter that that one's taller. Just needs to be tall enough to pierce through this thing. All right, I'm done with that one. Now I'm going to do the opposite side. Oh, I missed one. So now I need to edit this component, push pull all these things out. We're getting close. Almost done. All right. Again, it doesn't matter as long as it's piercing through this part here on both sides. So you can see once we remove these solids, there's still going to be some meat in between here for what I'm calling the feather. All right, so now I have all of my components of this component, and this component in the middle. Now, let me go ahead and move this out of the way so I can show you what we're doing. So I have those three components that I want to edit. I'm going to move those away so you can see. So I want this component, and the one in between, if I can select that. Click right here. And I want to move this out of the way. Actually, we'll move it. I'm going to follow a certain axis so I can move it back. on the green. I'm going to get out of the way of everything. So let's go 75. Let's go 100. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm going to be subtracting now. Let me select one of these and show you the entity info. So this is a solid component because I made each of these a component that is considered a solid. So this is a solid component, this is a solid component, and this is a solid component. So with these, any solids, you can subtract one from the other. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to remove these little ribs from the feather. So we haven't learned this in class yet, but we will talk about it. So what you want to do is click on here, and the outer shell is not what you want. Neither is union. You want to subtract. I can't remember the order, but one of them subtracts from the other. I'm going to select the feather as number 1, and then this as number 2. That's the opposite result of what I wanted. So remove the feather from the ribs. I want to do the opposite. Undo that step. So now I know I need to select the ribs first, then select the feather. And now I've made the stripes. So I need to do that one more time. Select the ribs. Actually, this is already selected, so I need to deselect that first. Go back to the subtract. Click the other ribs, and then the feather. And voila, we've created those lines. So now all I need to do is move this back. So I'm going to use the move tool. Click anywhere, and as long as I'm on the green axis, I'm going to type in 100. That's the distance that I moved it before. Enter. Okay, let me zoom in here to see what I've got. All right. Now these two things are still separate components, and eventually we will combine these and this center thing, but for now we're going to leave it at that.